Hi, this is Ela Minus, and you're listening to the Wasted Hour podcast.
Hello and good evening. This is Martin, and you're listening to another episode of our The Wasted Hour podcast, the podcast about fashion, artists, inspiration, and creative culture. And I'm very happy to introduce today's guest, artist Ela Minus. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you, Martin.
So the first question that I actually have is, I read in an interview that you always, before your live gigs, you drink one glass of whiskey before going on stage. And I'm super curious, what's your favorite type of whiskey?
Wow. I think at the moment I'm going through a Scotch phase.
Okay.
My dad recently gave me a bottle of Macallan, which is very nice. So I'm gonna say Scotch for now. It used to be bourbon, but going through a Scotch phase at the moment. Macallan, definitely. And I always take it neat. No rocks, no anything.
Okay, perfect. But I was just curious asking because you've been playing a lot live, but your musical career started way earlier when you were around 11 or 12 years old, and you joined your older brother's hardcore band. Do you remember what feeling you got out of to listening to more heavier music?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think I still have that feeling when I listen to certain genres of electronic music that are very harsh or harsher. But I think obviously it hits different when you're a teenager, because I just think when you're a teenager, everything feels so huge. I often feel like it's like all the emotions we have now as adults, but as teenagers, they're 12 times more or deeper in every way, to each side. It's like a roller coaster. At least that was my teenage years experience. So I think the music hit harder, and hardcore and metal that I listened to and I played back then definitely was I mean, it felt like the world was yours when you were listening to it, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Did you have a favorite band back then?
Yes, Fugazi was my favorite for years. I mean, I know it isn't so heavy, but yeah, definitely. As soon as I discovered it, which it was a little older, maybe 14 or 13, older than 11. But ever since, I always went back. It was always my favorite, even though I listened to a lot of music.
Yeah. And I was just curious asking because I got sucked into heavy music around the age of 10 or 11 too. I started with Limp Bizkit and Korn, and then it went deeper with Slipknot, and then a lot of death metal and deathcore and metalcore, and I'm still listening to all that kind of heavy stuff until now. But sometimes when I look back, I'm just really curious, what has drawn me to that when I was so young, what fascinated me. But when you say you feel when I'm 10 and I listen to the first Slipknot record, it felt 10 times as intense as it does now when I listen to music, you know?
Yeah, it's really interesting. That's interesting. I can't, I went also through a phase where I was listening more to, I guess, what was the genre? Something like neo metal? No, not I don't know, some genre of metal, but As I Lay Dying and Between the Bird and Me.
Metalcore.
Metalcore, there you go. But I can't listen to that anymore at all. I remember even many years ago, or 7 years ago or something, I saw, I think Between the Bird and Me was playing a show, and I was like, oh my god, I love this band, I'm gonna go. And I went, and I couldn't stay. I had to leave. I couldn't take it.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting that I mean, it still has like a nice place in my heart, but I like never play it at home anymore. Ever.
Yeah. Do you also remember, like, did it also affect your way of how you dressed yourself?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And I mean, I don't know if you've seen, but I have a lot of tattoos, and all my tattoos are I got them between the age of 13 and 16, actually. Every single one of them. So,
Oh wow.
yes, I think even if I change the way I dress, which obviously I have through the years, that era is like literally tattooed on my skin. I can't not talk about it even if I wanted to.
Yeah, and you also had a lot of piercings, what I read, that caused some trouble at school.
Yeah, yeah. I was all the way committed to the lifestyle back then. Again, which is what you do when you're a teenager. There's like no middle ground. I think when you're a teenager, you like if you're into something, you're like go all the way. So
Yeah.
if you're into punk or whatever, you're like it's a lifestyle. You know?
No, and it also lasted for you. You played in that band for like I think 7 or 8 years, and then eventually you left and you moved to the US because you received a scholarship for Berkeley. And around that time, I'm just guessing that you've already discovered more electronic music. So, do you remember like the first record from electronic music that really hit you?
Well, yes. I don't know if it would be considered. I think it's not considered an electronic record, but I think what opened the door for me to synthesizers and just electronic sound and kind of the path I've walked ever since was In Rainbows by Radiohead.
Yeah.
Which I remember being like I heard that the first time and I was like, what is this music? So yeah,
Do
and
you
then
know?
after,
Do you know who gave it to you, the record, or who suggested it to you?
it was someone in my band.
Okay.
The guitar player actually his name is David, and he had always been into Radiohead before In Rainbows, and we had this thing where he was very much into Radiohead and I wasn't. And then In Rainbows came out, and he was like, "This one is the one that's gonna turn you around." He was right. So, yeah.
It was a complete new era of Radiohead as well. I think it was the album that released for free on the internet, and you could like pay for whatever for it. And
exactly.
yeah, it was one of it was my first Radiohead album actually too, that I started with. But it took me like 5 years to get into it. Like
and then it hit.
Yeah, because I went back first, and then listened to Kid A, and then turned back into In Rainbows.
Yeah, I love all the past ones now too. After I fell in love with In Rainbows for a while, then I like everything before then hit better.
Yeah. Is it also like the album that introduced you to your love of synthesizers as well?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, that's why I mean it's like the one that opened the door sort of to this world in a way for me.
Yeah. Because like until today, when you produce your music, you don't use like a computer to produce it, and you like from what I've read, you fully dived into the synthesizer world, because one of your friends gave you a pocket piano synth as a gift.
Before the pocket piano, I was already very much into synthesizers, but I was in school to be a coder. I wanted to learn to program software synthesizers in laptops, like in computers. But while I was in school for that, I was very sad because I just didn't find what I was looking for, I think, there. And so my friend, I just had been talking about this frustration with him, and then he got me the pocket piano. He was like, I feel like this is what you're looking for. Like, this is something that's everything you say you wish computers were. And when he gave it to me, I was like, yes, this is exactly what I want. So, yeah.
But what have you been looking for when you went to school for coding?
I don't really know what I was expecting before I started. I think in my mind, I was just like, I've always been fascinated by technology in general, and I wanted to do something different than playing drums in my life. And I was already absolutely in love with electronic music. So, it made sense. Actually, the major was called music synthesis. But the way they taught it was all in computers. And once you were in it, like after you passed the first couple of years that were just synthesis, like very basic synthesis, then I decided to be a coder because I was like, okay, I can make synths inside laptops. But then, I don't know, it wasn't. I just apparently don't like. I love technology, but specifically computers. I think the more I learned, the more I realized my sensibility goes to machines that are designed to do like simpler machines that are designed to do one specific thing and not like as much as they can. So I think that's why I didn't like the coding part of it. I mean, I still think, to be honest, that everybody should learn how to code, at least like the basics, because so much of our lives now are mediated by computers and people that really know how to code, and they're literally taking our hands into their hands. And if we don't know the basics of like the language they're speaking, I think we're missing out on a lot. So I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think it's also like super interesting for me. I've never been good at math and like something like that, but when I learned coding as well for like programming like a homepage, it completely made sense to me because like you could see the results just like in a second, and it wasn't as abstract as before, like by just learning math. So.
Exactly, yeah, me too. I was also really bad at math, always. Yeah, like they should teach math by teaching programming and coding at schools. So much better for kids.
Yeah, I think so too. Instead of like those, like in Germany, you have like those hypothetically questions, like someone buys like 100 melons or I don't know what. Like the story starts always with that, and I was always like that's not realistic at all. So my brain just turned out always like the second, or like a new function or like something like that, because like it wasn't connected to my life, and it was just like
or to reality.
Really. Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
and
it's weird.
It wasn't until like 4 or 5 years ago that I learned like that coding and like programming is like totally you can totally dive into it without having like the school math knowledge at all.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
Did you like also like during your time at Berkeley, did you also learn something, because you went there for drumming, right? But did you also learn something about electronic music as well?
Well, I guess the major I was just talking about, which is called music synthesis, is what people that I guess want to do what I do now would study. So in theory, yes, but you start the major, and then so I did two. I did the drumming one, which is called performance in drum set, jazz drum set, and then the other one is music synthesis. And in the music synthesis, the first year is like general, like electronic music making. So I learned some things, but then really fast, you have to choose which path you want to go. Like if you want to be a producer or a mixing engineer or a sound design person or a coder. And I chose coding, so I didn't went farther down that path. And I would say that the few things I learned, I mean, I am glad I learned like basics of synthesis, I guess. But the rest of it I hated, because I would say the one thing I learned is that I hate making music in computers, because I had classes where I had to make a track in the computer, and I made shit. I was so bad. Yeah, I didn't like it. So I learned that. I was like, I'm not good to make music on laptops. This doesn't work for me.
What made you feel that you're good at making music when you did it with the synthesizers?
Nothing really. I just had fun, I think the difference is that I wasn't thinking. It resembled playing drums more, where for me, maybe it's just because of maybe now it's I do use the laptop a little bit more now, but I think for me it was simply the fact that when I was sitting in front of a computer trying to write a track, it was like, okay, we're working, like 4 bars of intro, 4 bars of, it was very, very methodical. When I started doing it with hardware, it was just like fun, like playing drums. It's like I'm having fun like a little kid. This is great. So I didn't care if it was good or not. I just did it because I had fun. That's the difference, I think.
Cool. Because like also during the time you played in some other bands, but then you also decided to go solo, like after playing years, like we mentioned it before, like in the hardcore band and any others as well. What was the initial point that you decided to go solo?
I was tired of people wanting more out of music, and not only music. And I know it sounds cheesy and like people should want more things, like careers and dreams, but I just didn't feel that way, and I was tired of constantly like having to be patient because my bandmates like wanted to do a song that sounded like a hit, you know, just to make it simple. And I didn't care about those things, but for many years I put myself behind. I was like, okay, it's fine, we'll do it for them. You know, like somebody always in groups and in bands like has to sacrifice stuff and like has to compromise for the well-being of the group, which is beautiful in a way, but I had been doing that all my life and I just got tired of it and decided that, you know, I had this like very specific sound in my head that I wanted to make, and I realized I couldn't make it on a band and I just had to do it myself. So I did it.
Yeah. Was it also around the same time that you started out for the first time going to electronic parties?
Well, no, actually, I started going to parties way before, when I was still in school. And actually, I started my solo project like 4 years after that.
Okay.
But I did start like making music in my house, just didn't like record it or anything outside of my house.
I would love to repeat the question that I was asking at the beginning about like the hardcore or heavier music as well. Like, can you say like, was it like a little bit the same feeling that you got out of like electronic music in the club as it like back then when you were like 11 and listening to more heavier music?
Yes, definitely the same feeling. Also the same feeling of like a safe space. I mean, I don't know safe what that word means, but I think for me it was just like, even, you know, when I was a kid, I hated school with all my heart, and I didn't really feel like I belonged anywhere. But whenever I went to a show and I was there with my friends or by myself, I felt like I belonged there, you know, like I was in my element or something. And I felt the same way the first time I went to a party, which I was by myself. I actually wasn't drinking or doing drugs ever, because I was still a straight edge from my teenage years until I was like very old. So it was just the feeling of like arriving somewhere where you feel you belonged. That's the same feeling I had at like the hardcore scene, and the same feeling I got the first time I went to a club.
Yeah, it's just so interesting to me because I had like a similar experience where you have like the social network that's surrounded by the music that you listen to is so powerful. And also like this for me, like the first time I didn't listen to electronic music at all, but somehow we went to electronic parties because I think some friends of mine threw like an electronic party, and it was like the best way to get into a party when you're like 16 when you're like on the guest list. And at first it was like just a soundtrack for like going out and like a whole new atmosphere, but then like also like it's totally kind of different people that attend like a techno or electronic party than before at a like hip-hop party or like at a metal party as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. See, I didn't have that growing up. I think there wasn't really an electronic scene in Colombia at all when I was growing up. And there probably was stuff going on, but I was not aware of it. So for me, it was like this like completely different thing that I found on my own. You know, it's like different from when like your friends take you or like you feel like you have to go. For me, it was like I felt like it was my own thing that I found, which is I don't know, a different thing. I guess.
Yeah, and also very precious. Like, I think so too.
Yeah, exactly. That's also why I like never even invited my other friends or anything. I was like, this is my secret, like, because nobody, was going to jazz school. Like nobody else was uh, listening to electronic music or going to clubs. So I felt like I had my own escape of that reality. It was nice.
Cool. And so 4 years later, you started going solo as well. And not only did she produce electronic music, but she also started to sing. Have you sang like in the band before, or was it the first time?
It was the first time.
I'm so curious asking because like since I'm doing like the podcast, I have like to listen to my own voice like a lot, and for the first year I totally hated it, and I was always asking myself how can anyone be friends with me, like the way I just sound like speaking. And then I just can imagine it's like 100 times the thing when you start singing at the beginning.
Yeah, it is exactly the same. I hated my voice, and I always thought I was bad at it. Also, like because I was very bad at school at like ear training and just classes that you had to sing in. Always very out of tune, just because I'm very shy, and I think singing just you have to not be shy, obviously. More than with any other instrument. And yeah, the reason why I decided to do it was not a musical decision at all. It was a personal decision because, it was just a moment in my life where I was bored of everything and tired of everything. And by that point, I was like 24, and I was like, this can be life, like I had already accomplished in my mind so much. Personally, just like I always wanted to go to Berkeley, and I was there already, and I had graduated, and I was making a living out of playing drums, and I was working at a synthesizer shop, building synthesizers. I was doing everything I always wanted to do, and it just hit me, and I was like, okay, well, is this it? Like I'm just gonna keep doing this forever? And I was, comfortable, and it was more like a challenge for me, the singing. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do something. I need to wake up, and I need to do something that I've never done before. And I literally made a list of things I've never done before musically, and it was a very simple. I mean, I'm sure I wrote more things, but in my memory, the things that stuck with me were singing, writing my own songs, and working alone. So I just decided to do those 3 things. Yeah, but it was interesting also because when I was actually recording, I realized I didn't want to do the safe thing like many people do, which is they don't really sing. They do sing a little bit, but then they drown the voice in like a mountain of effects and then call it singing or call it a melody. And I think I was like, okay, if you listen to my first songs, it's insane how dry and loud I can't listen to it anymore. I hate it because the voice is like 50% of the mix, and it's so dry. It's like I was really trying to put myself out there. I think it was an emotional thing more than a musical thing. So yeah.
So you didn't add any effects on the voice as well, right? On the first songs?
No, nothing. No effects.
But what kept you going, like singing? Like when you at first were like, oh, I'm really bad at this. But was it the reaction from the first song, or like the feeling that you got out of it?
It was the reaction from the first song that I put out. I think it was so weird because it was the first song I've ever written, the first song I've ever sang, and
is it Jamaica?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Jamaica, and I don't know. I think something about it felt special, I guess. Not necessarily to me, but about how people reacted to it, And I played a show very, very fast I didn't really plan for it, but I put that song on YouTube, and they asked me to come play a festival, and I did, just out of the same thing. I was like, well, why not? The worst thing that could happen is that I suck, and that's it. Everybody will forget about it the next morning, so it's fine. And I did it, and I remember opening with Jamaica and being like, I don't know, something about about it, like about everything, you know, about the entire thing, just singing on the machines and doing everything live just felt right. So I just kept doing it. But yeah, I also play a lot of instrumental stuff. I don't sing all the time.
Yeah. Could you tell how your voice has, or your way of singing has developed over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I laugh because I think it's so evident. If you listen to Jamaica, I'm singing like 2 octaves higher, like a crazy person. And I didn't know my voice at all. And I used to like write the entire song and finish it and then sing on top. So I was obviously like straining my voice a lot, just like trying to reach. I didn't know my own voice, so I was trying to reach other places that I didn't know. And now, obviously, after playing so much live, specifically after playing so much live, more than anything else, I've found, I think, my voice, like just what's comfortable for me. Yeah. So, and that only came out of experience.
No, I think you can totally hear it, but it's always like so interesting to hear it from the other side as well. And I was just like preparation for this interview, I listened to your first songs as well, and then also to the new album Acts of Rebellion that's coming out. And there's like I'm so amazed because like of course there's like a huge difference, but at the same time, like after the first seconds, you can hear that it's from you. And I'm always like love that you're keeping your signature at the same times, and at the same time you're evolving as an artist as well.
Thank you.
So about the album that's coming out, when did you start writing and recording it?
I started on the fall of 2018.
Okay.
Like September 2018.
Did it take you long, like just like to get into the direction, or were you just playing around at the beginning a lot, or how did you approach the album?
Well, I had been wanting to make an album, I think, for that entire year. I was doing so much the years prior to that, so much, because I was playing drums for 2 projects as a hired drummer, and then I was also touring as Ela Minus. So I was just like constantly on tour, and I remember in like October of 2017, so the year before, I was like, I need to make a record. I need to stop touring because I really want to make an album. You know, I felt ready. I don't know. I just wanted to make a full length, and I had to tell everybody I was working with, like, okay, I need to stop touring. But it was hard because I was playing drums for other people. So the fact that I was quitting meant they needed to get a new drummer, like all of these things. So it took me a long time, like, to teach, you know, because I by the time you've been touring with people, you become friends with them, and they're like your family. So I didn't want to be like, okay, fuck this, bye. So it took a while for me to like find a replacement and then teach them the parts, and also to be honestly on my own project, to like be strong enough to say no to tours, because they kept coming, which is, I'm very thankful for that. But anyway, it took me a long time to stop touring. So I only was able to stop on summer of 2018, and then it definitely took me a little bit of just getting used to being at home in New York and not traveling, and getting back into like getting in the writing like groove, I guess, for the first time in years, because before that all the EPs I've done really, really fast in like hotels or Airbnbs, wherever I was, and it was never more than 2 weeks. But this time I was like back in my own apartment with my things, and I haven't lived there for so long, so I didn't have stuff. Everything was like a new life. So it took me like the summer to settle in, and then I think I actually started writing in like September, because but once I got into the groove, it was fast. I think I was done in January. I was done completely, so it only took me like 4 months or something. So yeah.
How did you feel when you were like ready and you handed your album in?
Not as climatic as I thought it was going to be. I think the most climatic point is going to be when it actually is released, or when I have the vinyl in my hand, which I still don't have. So I think once I'm actually able to see the vinyl done and it's out of my I don't know, like something, I love physical things, and I think something about seeing it physically done in my hands, that's when I think it's going to be like more real.
Yeah, I think like we are still like sensual as humans, and when you have something in your hand, even if it's like a photograph or a vinyl or something, it makes it more real and easier for the brain to process it
Definitely.
instead of just having like a digital file.
Yeah,
To
exactly.
it. When I listened to the album, I had the sense that it's like a very it's like a mixture of like dark but also very uplifting music, like uplifting in the sense that that it encouraged me like in a mood like to do something, and also like because it's called Acts of Rebellion. When I read in like another interview of you, you said that it's like the album is a call to fight against but against what?
Against anything you feel like you want to fight. I mean, I think that fight is a very, that's why I didn't want to be specific on that description,
Yeah.
because I think we all have very such different lives, you know, so it's hard to pinpoint a specific fight, but I think what I want is to like awaken this general approach to life right now, which is everything is completely fucked, and I'm sure it affects everybody in 1,000 different ways, and there are 1,000 different ways to fight those oppressing forces. And yeah, so I think it's a call to like question your own life and your like everyday, and what things you don't like about yourself and about everything around you, and then start changing those, you know, or accepting them. But I think the word fight is like, for me, it's just a very passionate way of saying do something.
Yeah.
About whatever you want to do something about. Just wake up and like do stuff. It's so important.
Also, the fact I was quite amazed by is the artwork. Did you do it yourself?
No, I worked. I mean, I am very, very hands-on. So I pretty much. I mean, I come up with all the ideas, but I worked with this amazing design studio called Dr. Me. They're in Manchester. Yeah, I love working with them. It's been amazing. I've wanted to work with them for years because they've done a lot of my favorite artworks of albums through time, like for the past years, and so I always wanted to work with them, and I'm really happy I got to.
Yeah, I'm asking because like in the past you also did some artwork as well, and you draw a lot of stuff, and you refer to it as your rest from music, and also did a lot of artwork for other artists as well. Why did you stop doing it?
Well, yeah, I don't know actually. Well, first I think because of time, I just got more interested in other things, like in doing more. Like I think I had more time off when I was only playing drums, or like I had a more balanced life, you know, where I was like, this is my job, and then I go home and I can draw and like watch movies. And now it's like 100, like a crazy person. Like it just takes over your life when you're doing everything on your own. Like as Ela Minus, since I do everything, it's like I don't really do anything else anymore. I mean, I read anyway. I have other hobbies, but I don't have as much free time, I guess. But also, I guess on the more professional way, I stopped doing my own artwork because I realized I was starting to have ideas that I didn't have the skills to accomplish. You know, I was like for example, the artwork of this record. I could see it. I knew what I wanted. I could see it, but I couldn't do it myself. I just didn't know how to. And so I think I reached I reached as far as I could go on that side of like the visual artwork for my own stuff. So yeah, but I actually have a post-it right now on my wall that says draw more. So I think I want to get back to doing it just for fun.
Because the vinyl also comes like with an attached poster to it as well, and I love like being like a collector of stuff myself. When I saw it, and I will be really happy to offer it in our shop as well, because like it's really special artwork with a special poster.
Thank you.
And I can't wait like to put like the vinyl on as well.
Yes, thank you. Me either, actually. I'm so excited.
Yeah. What I also want to ask about the album is when you do like, as you don't work with computers, for me it's also like a very organic sound, because like it's like a very alive record as well. Does it feel for you that you like put like out a live album that sounds like to me very organic into like these uncertain times right now?
Well, I think I feel very like glad that I have this album to give right now. I think I mean it's such a weird time, but at the same time, you know, I thought about postponing the release until next year, because I hadn't announced it until recently, and like I had the freedom, you know, and it's also my first album, so it felt like, I don't know, people around me were like, well, you know, maybe we should wait because you only release your first album once and it's so special, like we really should do it right. And I've said all my life that my biggest passion is actually to play live, and so not being able to play live when I'm releasing this record was very shocking to me, and just like weird, because I almost feel like my hands are tied on, like I made also the record thinking of playing those songs live, so it was just weird. But then I realized a little bit of what I mean, thank you for saying it's alive. That makes me really happy that you perceive it like that, but for me it's like I just felt like I made something that had depth, and it just felt right to do it this year, because it's, I don't know, because I feel like people are craving that. At least I am, you know, like the records or the music I've like felt more connected to this year has been music that is sort of like accepting reality in the way it is, and not so much escapism, not so much like just nice music that sounds beautiful, which has a place in the world, but at the moment I think we're past that. We're like in a moment where we need a life, like truth, and so I felt like if I was craving that, my responsibility as an artist was to give that, and I felt like glad that I made a record like that, even if I made it 2 years ago, because I wouldn't, like if my record, for example, was like a more personal one, or like a self-titled debut that was more about me, I would have definitely waited until 2021 to release it. But I hope it brings light to people and uplifts them, and like even if like the message is like, yes guys, everything's fucked, but we're together in this and we can change it, like we have the power to change this, and I felt like I needed to share that right now, because we need uplifting music.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful that you say that, because like also of the message the album contains, it's perfect for this moment right now. That's how I perceived it.
Thank you.
Like my always the closing questions for our interviews always like the same, also during COVID, but just imagine that you're at the airport and you would be given a free flight. Where would you go to and why?
Hawaii, actually. Hawaii or the Azores, those islands on Portugal. Actually, the Azores. I'll just go with that.
Okay. And why?
Because I have not been outside of a city this year. You know, I've been completely in lockdown in New York for a year now. I mean, not a year, but you know,
it
almost.
Felt like a year.
Yeah, definitely feels like a year. Yeah, and I've been really craving seeing the ocean so much these days. And I'm very close with my brother. He's like my best friend, really, and he is going to the Azores for the rest of the year, like next week. So I've been talking to him, and every time I talk to him, I'm like, fuck, you're doing it so right. I should just go with you. He like rented a house in the top of a mountain, and it's just like gonna be there until like January. So I would love to see him, and I would love to be near the ocean and go scuba diving and not have a phone and just like be with nature. So
wow, that sounds amazing, and hopefully you can do that sooner than later. Thank
you.
Until then, I wish you all the best for the upcoming record. I'm I'm really happy that we can offer that a wasted hour. So all you guys should check it out, and hopefully we'll be able to hear it live soon as well.
Yeah,
Cool.
I hope so too. Thank you for everything, Martin.
Thank you, Ela. Thank you so much.